rock and roll!
Well, judging from the carving on your desk, it looks like his name is Ozzy.
Yes, and apparently he rules.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
So while we wait for Maul to premiere in April and later this year on Memorial Weekend, Star Wars, Mandalorian, and Grogu, we should talk about what happened the last 10 years and then what they can do and where Star Wars is heading as far as like where the stories are and what's important. Kathleen Kennedy's been gone. Well, it'll be 3 years this July, but officially gone since, I'm going to say December 16th when she did that exit interview. And there's nothing apologetic in her voice, in her tone or voice about what she did to Star Wars. Certainly nothing apologetic about what she did to Indiana Jones. I think the only thing, I'm going to qualify that. The only thing she felt bad about was Soyla, with Soy Wars story. And she apologized for casting the wrong guy. The movie still sucked. It's a terrible story. And I want to talk about something I've noticed. A lot of people who are really good at AI, are really putting out some classically good Star Wars stuff to the point where it's getting interesting to follow the stories. I'm going to try to link the video that I want to point out to people. It's basically Heir to the Empire with some creative license, and it's quite something to see. The story's good. It's got Timothy Zahn's plot and scenes, but it's also got some stuff that came from Rebels, which is fine because it actually works. Again, when we talk about things at work, one of the things that you do as a writer is you edit yourself. And, Cameron's said this before. Directors aren't writers. Well, of course, unless it's George Lucas, who, was able to self-edit himself. And the problem with J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson is that they can't self-edit. The thing about a good writer is they have to be able to self-edit. Rian Johnson and the, basically side trip to nowhere, Canto Bight, that did nothing to move the story along. That should have been cut completely. That whole thing should have been cut completely. J.J. Abrams, he wrote too many characters, right? George understood that having 3 characters was about the best you could do. Han, Luke, and Leia. Anakin, Padme, Obi-Wan. All right. And 4th characters like Qui-Gon, he was important, like Obi-Wan. But after episode 1, he's gone. Okay. Same thing with Obi-Wan Kenobi in the original trilogy. And he came back as a ghost sparingly. The show, the first 2 movies concentrated on Han, Luke, and Leia. Return of the Jedi's falter was where Lando Calrissian had too big of a role, in my opinion, and should not have been in the rest of the movie after they rescued Han. So what you want is to keep the script tight. The reason why The Empire Strikes Back worked so well is the script was tight, right? You had the subplot, Luke training with Yoda, subplot, Han and Leia escaping the Empire through the asteroid field and then to Cloud City. And then those subplots dovetail to the climax, right? That's how you do it. J.J. Abrams does not know how to write like that. Rian Johnson has proven, without a shadow of a doubt, that he doesn't know how to write like that for a movie like this. And the thing about it is, because George, here's the problem with Return of the Jedi, and it's a wonderful movie, it's one of my favorite movies of all time, is Lando leading the charge into the Death Star hurts the chemistry, and it kind of divides the story too much. It's watered down. And that should be a lesson for anybody. He didn't have to be in the rest of the movie. Rescue Han, go back and help clean the Imperials out of Cloud City, blah blah blah. That would have been fine. However, the excuse was Harrison didn't know if he was going to come back. Well, he did come back because they dangled enough money under his nose, which that's what you do with actors like that when they're stubborn. And, that he didn't have enough to do, right? And he complained about it. It's like, well, you did lead the guys to the shield generator and blew it up. They would not have been able to get the Death Star blown up without that. However, I'm going to say this again, that movie was watered down because there were one too many main actors. And I want to talk about that and talk about something that Liam Neeson said, which I agree with, because it's in the same vein as this. I will see you on the other side.
I've been basking in it for the last 30 minutes. My God, I feel like a seafront village after the Vikings have left.
What an odd combination of odors. Smells like a fish died and all the other fish sent flowers.
So last year, Liam Neeson was being interviewed, and he was talking about if he would return as Qui-Gon Jinn in Star Wars, and he's asked it all the time. But what he said is very interesting. He basically said Star Wars is being diluted by too many spin-offs. I would like to synthesize that further. Secondary characters getting shows is probably not the way to go. Granted, Dave Filoni created Ahsoka with George's blessing. I am not going to get mad at him for any of that. I do think that there's way too many women there. But I think Liam's got the point. And I also think I know why they're doing what they're doing. When we got the Mandalorian, it was a breath of fresh air and a terrible moment for the franchise. And I say terrible because I don't think there's a human being who's a Star Wars fan and an honest person who would say what's been going on with the sequels, with the Trashlight, etc., was a good idea, right? It didn't. The Force Awakens made money, but in my opinion, it was lipstick on a pig. Terrible movie. The Last Jedi was where the bottom started dropping out, and it hasn't been the same since. So they started looking at secondary characters like Obi-Wan and Ahsoka to try to revive the franchise, and I understand that. And I'm perfectly happy with Obi-Wan Kenobi, perfectly happy with Ahsoka, considering Anakin Skywalker, who is the main character, he really is the main character, is in the show. And this is where things are going to change. And if you don't believe me, look at the changes coming in the park. I doubt you would have seen Han Solo and Luke Skywalker in the park if Kennedy still had anything to say, and you are. Now, am I going to complain if they cast a nerdlinger to play Han? Probably. But at least he's there, all right? My issue is aesthetics. But the problems that I see with the spinoffs is not just merely their secondary characters and diluting the product. It's the characters themselves. I question the wisdom of bringing more than one animated character into live TV shows. That being said, I'm talking about the smug, conceited, arrogant, obnoxious, ideal whammon. And we've got Sabine Wren. I don't like the character. I never have, I never will. She's annoying. She's not fun to watch. She's not likable. If she dies, no one's going to care. All right, I know I won't. And she's not the only one. Here's a character right here that takes away from a main character. This is Hera Syndulla, and she has a son named Jason. And again, she's a creation of Dave Filoni. And what they did was they took the name of Han and Leia's twin, one of the twins, Jason, and gave it to a character no one cares about. That's not how you do things, and she takes away from Leia. Again, diluting what's going on here. And I know people are going to say, well, Star Wars is bigger than the big three. No, it's not. These are the three characters that George created and wrote the first three movies around. If anything, I could complain about Lando in Return of the Jedi, because he took away from Han. And really, did he have to be in Return of the Jedi to, the whole thing to be considered a great character? No, he didn't. Lando's a secondary character. There's no reason for him to be in the whole movie. What I would have done is I would have told Larry Kasdan, write it so when we're making the transition to the middle part of the movie and they're leaving Tatooine after Jabba's death, Lando goes back to fight for Cloud City. Okay. Then Han is the one that steps up to lead the rebellion into the Death Star. Leia is the one who's responsible for taking out the shield generator. And that would have been a little more understanding, and you would not have had the complaints by Harrison Ford, because he would have had he did have a big job. If he doesn't take out the shield generator, the rebellion dies, right? But still, the show works with three main characters, not 4 or 5, 6 or 7. And that's, I think, where the dilution is coming from. And then, of course, we have what I think has been forgotten, what the story is really about, and it's about Anakin Skywalker. His rise and fall, and his redemption. And again, he's in Ahsoka, thank God. I think this is where we're finally going to get some resolution to the problem of the sequel trilogy, because his destiny was already written out in Clone Wars. He is to take over for the father. The father's dead, the Force is out of balance. And who was born to bring balance to the Force? Anakin Skywalker. Right? Which part of the whole story is Palpatine wanted to corrupt the Chosen One, so there wouldn't be balance. Right? Balance leading, out of balance leading to the dark side. Right? That's the thing. He's the Chosen One for a reason. And that's the thing that I think is being forgotten here. So far, we have not gotten Luke in a conversation with his father. We haven't had Leia resolving her feelings. And there's a great scene in Truce at Bakura where Leia is confronted by him. And then Han, looking at his wife going, "What are you talking about?" Or soon-to-be wife at the time, is he's part of that conversation, whether he knows it or not. She says to Anakin, I could forgive you for everything you ever did to me, but I'll never forgive what you did to Han. And paraphrase what Anakin says, basically that's up to him, right? And you could take that book and that part, make it a little more involved, and it would work. But you have Anakin involved, right? With the top three, and he goes in and out. He's not like, a secondary character like Din Djarin or Ahsoka Tano who gets his own thing. He's the main character, and he is present. He doesn't have to say anything. That's the thing. And I think the dilution in bringing in these secondary characters is actually where Liam Neeson is right. And again, let's talk further. The problem with Ahsoka isn't Ahsoka. It is too many women, and I know Dave Filoni loves his wife, so everything I think he does is for her. And it's like you're not serving the story well. You're not serving the franchise well because it's a boys' franchise. It is not a girls' franchise. And as a girl who grew up Star Wars, I didn't care. The moment you start concentrating on smug characters that are female, like Sabine Wren, and, dilution characters like Harrison Dula, you ruin what the story's about. You ruin it. Okay? That's the problem I have. And I think Dave probably knows that in the end. And they've got to step away from creating all these female characters and then not giving the men their fair shake. And also, they have to stop making things about secondary characters. They have to go back to what works. The wonder, the joy, the mystery of Anakin Skywalker, Luke, Han, and Leia. And Han and Leia's kids, Luke creating the Jedi Academy, and Anakin's involvement in everything. That and getting down to what the Force is, the mysteries of the Force. Not this whatever. Not taking away from Mando and Grogu. As a side trip, I think it's great. But it's sort of like, okay, can we go back to Han, Luke, and Leia? This is, a few years after Return of the Jedi, and I'd like to see what the actual real Star Wars characters are doing. And I think the fans would appreciate that. But anyway, I just want to talk about where Star Wars has been and the problems with it. And, it's not a hard fix. And hopefully Josh D'Amaro And Alan Bergman and Dana Walden understand that. This is Steph signing out. See you around the galaxy.
Ready, everybody?
All set.
Here we go again.